I have a question for you, and I want your honest gut answer. If you were standing in a room full of powerful people and a pregnant woman hit the floor, would you keep your head down, or would you step forward and risk your job, your safety, maybe even your kid's future? Would you step or stay silent? The music was still playing, the laughter was still pretending, and I was the janitor in the corner when it happened. 3 seconds later, I wasn't invisible anymore. My name is Logan Price. I clean floors for a living. That's not a confession, it's just the truth. I'm a single dad with a 15-year-old pickup, a fridge that hums like it's trying to remember a song, and a 7-year-old boy who thinks cereal is a celebration if I smile while I pour it. We live in a small one-bedroom in Oak Cliff, Dallas. It's the kind of neighborhood where people either hustle or they drown. At 5 a.m., my alarm buzzes. I check to make sure my son Caleb is breathing slow and even. And for a second, I let myself believe we're going to be okay today. Then I make breakfast with whatever we have. Sometimes toast if the bread hasn't turned mostly cereal, and on good weeks, there's a banana. He asks for pizza. I say next week because next week is safer than no. You know what I mean. His mom, Sarah, left 3 years ago. She didn't leave because she was a villain. She left because we were sinking, and I was too tired and too proud to admit it. I was an electrical tech, then missing shifts to take Caleb to appointments, juggling cut hours and late fees, and that little house we were halfway to owning turned into a memory with a for sale sign tilted in the yard. When she walked out, something inside me walked with her. I don't blame her, I just miss the person I thought I was when we still believed next year would be better. I knocked on a lot of doors looking for work. People don't line up to hire a single dad who needs to clock out for second-grade pickup. Indigo House took me on nights 9 to 5 janitorial. If you've never been in a place like that, picture a movie set that figured out how to pour drinks. The ballroom is all chandeliers and mirrors, the kind of glass that makes rich people look even richer, and the back corridors are a humming machine of heat and hands and hustle. My job is to make things look like they never happened. A spill that didn't, a broken glass that never shattered, a mess that cleaned itself up somehow. You learn how to be quiet. You learn how to walk soft. You learn how to lower your eyes because power likes not being interrupted. There was one person who always saw me, though. Cole Bennett, head chef. He runs his kitchen like a metronome, soft voice, hard standards, eyes that clock everything. Sometimes at the end of a long night, he'd slide me a foil tray with leftover pasta or a few slices of roast. He'd say nothing. I'd say thanks. It sounds small until you're counting quarters at the pump. His wife Maya was fighting cancer, and he still showed up steady, like that was the only promise he knew how to keep. We didn't talk much, not the deep stuff, just two men trying not to fall behind the world. The night, everything changed. Indigo House didn't just sparkle, it burned. Charity gala. The kind of fundraiser where the flowers cost what a car costs in my zip code. The guest list read like the business section stacked end to end. Preston Hawthorne was the star of the night, the software savant, the boardroom golden boy, the man with the multi-hundred-million-dollar state contract, and the smile that says the world agrees with him. Beside him stood his wife Grace in a pale turquoise silk gown that caught the chandelier light like water. She was 6 months pregnant, carrying herself with that careful grace that makes strangers lower their voices without being asked. Only if you looked close, her eyes didn't smile. Pattern interrupt. Then it happened. A bump, a spill, a breath sucked in. Champagne on a suit that probably cost more than my truck. Preston turned face, going hard like a door slamming, and he gripped her wrist. She tried to pull back, he shoved, and she hit the marble with a sound I can still hear when a room gets too quiet. The band kept playing. The laughter didn't even stutter. Hundreds of people pretended their eyes didn't work. Silence heavy as steel. That's the sound I remember first. The silence. I stepped forward before I could think my way out of it. Not because I'm brave, because I'm a dad. Because my brain threw up one picture and one sentence. Sarah with her hands on her back, when she carried Caleb breathing, like she was trying to make space in her body for love and fear at the same time. And the sentence was, "Oh, buddy touches a pregnant woman." Period. I heard my voice before I recognized it. "Sir, please stop. She's pregnant." My throat was dry and my hands shook, and I knew exactly who he was and exactly who I wasn't. Preston looked at me like I'd crawled out from under something. "Who do you think you are?" he said, that cold laugh sliding in like a knife under the ribs. "I work here," I said, "but you're hurting her." He stepped in close and I caught a nose full of cologne with a Latin name and a price you never say out loud. "Do you know who I am?" he asked. "Yes," I said, "but that doesn't give you the right to hit her." He smiled a smile that wasn't a smile, and then he slapped me. The room did a slow spin and lights popped at the edges of my sight. I straightened and met his eyes again. They were daring me to say another word, and mine were trying to say I already had. I pulled out my phone and hit record. If nobody believes the janitor, maybe they'll believe a video. That was the only thought in my head. Pattern interrupt. The air changed. I heard shoes before I saw him chef clogs on polished floor. Cole came out of the kitchen, untied his apron like he'd been waiting to take it off for a year, and said one word. "Enough." Not loud. Clear. He didn't stand in front of me or behind me, he stood beside me and he lifted his phone too. One woman in a crimson dress started filming, then another, then 10 more, and it was like the spell in that room cracked down the middle. Security hesitated, stuck between money and something older than money. The kind of truth you can't talk your way around. Preston tugged his cuff, straightened his face, and tried to smile it off. "Misunderstanding," he said. He told Grace to get up. She held her belly and stared at the floor like it was the only part of the room that wouldn't lie to her. Paramedics came. They did their job while the room pretended nothing needed doing. As they wheeled her out, she looked at me and said 2 words that still live under my ribs. "Thank you." Cole touched my shoulder. "Go home," he said, voice steady and eyes tired. "Your son's waiting." I went home at 4 a.m., quiet on the stairs. Breath held all the way until I saw Mrs. Regina asleep on our couch, with Caleb's head on her lap, and his old teddy bear pinned under his arm like a badge. I tucked him in, and in his sleep he mumbled, "I love you, Dad." And I thought, okay, whatever happens next, I'll be able to look him in the eye. Morning came with a bite. 47 missed calls, a text from Indigo House. Suspended pending investigation, do not contact clients or media. Yeah, that happened. I expected it. I didn't expect what came next. When I opened my phone to upload the video, the file was broken. Not just glitchy, gone. Corrupted like someone had reached into the phone and squeezed the proof out of it. Cole called. His was gone too. That drop in your stomach when somebody bigger than you takes the one thing you need to stay whole. You know what I mean? Twist. Cole slid a USB across a cafe table later that morning. "Security feed," he said. "I know the tech guy." I pulled it before the wipe order came down. He didn't grin like a movie hero, he just breathed out like a man who had decided which side of the line he was standing on. If we used it, they could say we stole company property. If we didn't, the truth would die in that glittering room. We stared at that thumb drive like it was a live wire, and then I went home and opened my old laptop. I didn't write a speech. I didn't stage lights. I just looked into that dumb little camera and told the truth like a guy who's too tired to be clever. I said my name, my job, my kid's name. I said what I saw, what I did, and why. I said I wasn't brave, just a father who wanted his son to know what to do when someone is getting hurt. And then I did the one thing people tell you not to do when you're up against a billionaire. I said his name. I said what he did. I said the part that mattered. The truth can be delayed, but it can't be erased if we refuse to shut up. I uploaded. The internet did what the internet does. It poured in with fire and ice at the same time. Support prayers, donations of words from strangers who recognized the shape of silence and were done with it. And threats. Cold emails saying I'd be sued into dust. Texts telling me I ruined a good man. A voicemail that said, "Watch your kid." That sentence doesn't land in your ears. It lands in your bones. I looked at Caleb's closed bedroom door and felt fear like a taste at the back of my mouth. "Get a lawyer," Cole said. I laughed because we both knew exactly how many dollars were in my wallet. Then my phone started lighting up with names I had only seen on TV credits. Firms from New York, LA, Boston. Pro bono. "We believe you," they said. "We'll represent you and Grace." My hands shook in a way that wasn't fear this time. That's when Harper Quinn called. Independent journalist voice like someone who has had to speak truth louder than the room was willing to hear. "I watched your video," she said. "I believe you. I want to help you tell this the right way." I asked how I could trust her. She said I couldn't, not really, but if we wanted to beat a man like Preston, we needed someone he couldn't buy. "You know who he can't buy," she said, Grace. "If we could get to her, if she was willing to speak, the whole game would change." 2 in the morning, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. "I'm Grace," the text said. "Meet me at 6 a.m., room 427. Don't tell anyone." My blood went cold and hot at the same time. A trap. Maybe. But if it was her, if she was reaching out, we had to go. I knocked on Mrs. Regina's door, and she pressed her palm to my cheek like she was checking for fever. "I'll watch him," she said. "Be careful. Some people save your life and never put their name on the rescue." Linda, a nurse with tired eyes and a spine like rebar, met us at a side entrance. 2 guards held the main hallway like a checkpoint, but she knew the quiet elevators and the early morning routes. Hospitals at dawn are their own country. Humming lights, polished floors, a silence that doesn't forgive. Room 427 smelled like disinfectant, and fear turned into resolve. Grace looked smaller without the silk, but stronger too, like steel shows up best when you strip away the shine. Her cheekbone was bruised, lips split at one corner, hair matted from the night before. She sat up and held her belly with both hands, like you do when you've decided the only thing that matters is the life you're protecting. "You're Logan," she said, the words dry in her throat. "Yes, ma'am," I said. "I'm Logan." Her eyes filled and didn't spill. "You were the only one who stepped in," she said. "For 3 years, no one dared." She told us about the first slap on the honeymoon, the jealous questions turning into phone checks, turning into isolation. She told us how apologies turned into explanations, turned into blame, turned into threats. She told us about the staircase and the kitchen counter, and the soft words that turned hard. She told us about trying to run and getting dragged back with hands around her throat and a voice in her ear promising that if she left, he would kill her. If you're listening and your first question is, why didn't she leave sooner? I want to ask you one back. If every door you try is locked from the outside, are you really free to walk out? Be honest. If it were you, what would you have done? Then she opened the drawer and pulled out another USB. "Home security," she said. He never thought I knew where the backups were. On those drives were timestamps, interior camera angles, audio files, photos of bruises next to dated newspapers. It was ugly in the way truth gets when you stop turning away. Linda stood watch at the door like a sentinel. The guards showed up anyway. "You're not authorized," one said. Linda didn't flinch. "Patient choice," she said. "If you interfere, I will call hospital security. And I'm documenting your names." Grace lifted her chin. "I want them here." The guards didn't know what to do with a woman who wasn't afraid of them anymore. They backed off. Harper edited for 18 straight hours. I watched some of it, not all. There's a difference between hearing a sentence like "he choked me" and watching a recording where a man who smiles on magazine covers does something so ugly the color leaves your face. There's a difference between knowing about threats and reading the words. "If you leave me, I'll kill you." Harper cut the story like a surgeon closes a wound, precise, unflinching. She opened with Preston's stage smile at the gala, then cut to the marble floor, to my cheek, burning from a slap, to Grace's eyes, braced for impact. She didn't add music. She didn't need to. She ended with my raw confession. My name, my kid, my choice, and the line that had been carrying me through the dark. The truth can be delayed, not erased. Stick around because what happened next will blow your mind. The video didn't just trend. It detonated. Millions of views before lunch. Hashtags, think pieces, call-in segments on the radio, text messages from cousins you haven't heard from in 5 years. Some people called us liars. Some called us saints. Some said we were part of a moral panic. Some said we were long overdue. Celebrities shared it. Preachers preached about it. My old boss texted me a thumbs up, and I didn't know what to do with that. Do you think that's fair? That a story has to get that big before the law remembers what it's for, I want to know. The board at Hawthorne Systems called an emergency meeting. The state contract hit pause. Big clients posted carefully lawyered statements about taking allegations seriously. Preston's PR team tried the usual playbook. Misunderstandings, stress a marriage in trouble. But you can't spin a video that shows what your mouth keeps denying. 2 days later, Dallas PD walked into Hawthorne Systems with a warrant, and the cameras watched as the man who never heard the word no got cuffed in a lobby that cost more than my yearly rent. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like a door finally closed that should never have been open in the first place. 3 months later, the trial. Courthouses always smell like cold paper and old coffee. The hallway outside the courtroom looked like a press conference that forgot to end. Inside, fluorescent lights made everyone look the same color of tired. I had one suit, second-hand sleeves a little too long, shoulders a little too wide. I wore it like a borrowed backbone. Cole sat behind me, hands clasped, jaw tight. Harper had a notebook, open pen ready. Grace sat at the plaintiff's table in a simple navy dress, hair pulled back, eyes steady. Across from her, Preston wore the same confidence, like it was part of the suit stitching. The prosecutor, Rebecca Morrison, had a voice like a tuned instrument. Not loud, just clear. She said they would show the jury what happened with evidence and testimony, and the kind of facts that can stand without leaning on anyone's opinion. The defense attorney had that polished certainty you can buy when your clients never lose. He said it was all a tragic misunderstanding, that video can be misleading, that memory fails, that people lie for money. He said the ugly part out loud and watched it hang there like a dare. They called me first. I told the story the way I'm telling it now, with the same bruised honesty and none of the fancy words. "Why did you record?" he asked. "Because nobody believes a janitor," I said, "but sometimes they believe a camera." Then the ballroom footage played. The music, the slap, The held breath, the half-step forward, and the half-step back. It all filled the courtroom like ghosts had come to sit in the back row. I didn't look at the jury. I looked at Grace. When she took the stand, she didn't cry for the camera. She cried like a person who has learned not to cry in front of danger. She told them about the first time and the last time and all the times in between, how apologies turned to rules and rules turned to prison and prison turned to threats. The defense asked why she stayed, and she stared at him the way a storm stares at a coastline. "Because I wanted to live," she said. "He said he would kill me." The USBs did the rest of the talking. Home cameras don't care how famous you are. Juries are human, which means unpredictable. But sometimes the curtain drops and there is only one line left to say. Guilty on assault. Guilty on domestic abuse. Guilty on threats to life. The judge didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. 8 years, no early release, a permanent no-contact order, redistribution of assets to ensure the survivor and the child were protected, and a fund established for others who would need a lawyer, a roof, a counselor. People still argue about that part. Do you think that's fair? That money gets rerouted like that? That prison time is what justice looks like? That a fund can ever make up for a bruise you can still feel a year later? I don't have all the answers. I know a roof saves lives. I know a lawyer in your corner changes outcomes. I know counseling can build a bridge back to yourself when you've been missing for too long. Tell me what you think. Relief and grief hit at the same time. Relief that we had been believed. Grief because something broke in all of us and justice doesn't solder it back together the way it was. Outside cameras flashed like fireworks while we tried to remember how to walk like ordinary people. Grace hugged me. She didn't say thank you. We were past that word. She held on like you hold a railing when the floor still remembers how to move. A year is a long time and no time at all. We turned the key on a small brick building in East Dallas, an old community center with fresh paint and that clean smell that isn't just chemicals, it's hope getting scrubbed into the walls. We called it the Light's Foundation because light is the one thing darkness can't argue with. Legal aid, counseling, job training, safe beds, childcare, a warm kitchen with coffee that never runs out, a place to sit with your back to a door without flinching. Cole became our operations guy, somehow still finding time to cook for fundraisers that tasted like home. Maya showed up with a scarf over her hair and a smile like a sunrise. Harper handled communications and investigations, still chasing stories that needed light. At the opening, a young woman came up to me, barely out of college, hands shaking, voice small and fierce at the same time. "I watched your video," she said. "I called the police after. I left." She cried and then laughed and then cried again. I didn't say anything smart. I just hugged her while she turned back into a person who could breathe. Then a man introduced himself as a business owner from Houston. He said his company wanted to sponsor the foundation, $500,000 a year. Cole cried. Not movie tears, the kind a man holds back until the dam cracks. Maya wiped his face and laughed at him while he laughed at himself. That night, Harper and I stood by the door, while volunteers swept confetti like the end of a game we had actually won. She told me a secret I didn't earn, but needed to hear. I didn't say this before, she said, but I'm a survivor too. I understood then why her voice sounded like a bridge when everything else felt like a cliff. Survivors build roots across rivers other people can't even see. That was the other twist, the one that explained why she kept going when sleep and fear tried to pull her off the road. Not everything is tidy. It never is. Preston's lawyers filed appeals until their pens ran out of ink. People still argue online about whether the sentence was too harsh or not harsh enough, whether the money made it right or made it worse, whether we had destroyed a great man or simply revealed the truth about him. There's a version of my story where I'm a martyr and a version where I'm an opportunist. I don't live in either. I live in the one where my son still asks for pizza on Fridays, and I still count receipts, where Grace still wakes up some nights to check the baby's breathing, where Cole texts me pictures of perfectly roasted chickens with captions like, "Still got it." Where Harper sends me links to stories and asks, "Can we help?" And I say, "Let's try." Sometimes I sit on the steps outside the foundation as the sun goes down. Caleb, 8 now, leans his head on my shoulder and tells me about school and video games and the names of kids I'll forget and remember again. He asked me once, "Dad, did we win?" And I told him the only honest thing I could. We won this one. Then we talked about the ones we haven't won yet. There are too many, but now there are more of us carrying the load. I told you at the start that I had a question for you, and I wasn't kidding. You are going to be in a room someday. Not a ballroom, maybe just a parking lot, a living room, a classroom. And you're going to see something that isn't right. Your stomach will drop. Your brain will start up with a spreadsheet of risks and consequences. You'll hear your heart in your ears. And there will be an invisible line on the floor. Step or stay. If it were you, what would you do? Be honest. Would you keep your head down or would you step? I'm not going to lie to you. It isn't always safe to step. Safety matters. Strategy matters. Sometimes the bravest thing is making a phone call from behind a locked door, or slipping a note to a teacher, or taking a picture and sending it to someone who can act. I'm not asking you to be reckless. I'm asking you not to become an accessory to harm, because silence is easier. There's a difference. The world runs on that difference. And there's a debate I can't close for you. What should justice look like when the person who did the harm is powerful? When their money can buy time, and their image can buy benefit of the doubt? When the system seems built to bend around them? Is prison the answer? Is money? The answer is community accountability. The answer is it all of the above. In proportions, we still don't have right. Do you think that's fair? That a man like Preston goes away for 8 years and gives up a fortune while a guy without a lawyer might sit longer for less? You tell me. Leave it in the comments. Argue with me. Argue with each other. But do it with the respect you'd want if you were the one telling a story with a bruise under your sleeve. Before I close, I want to say the sentence I repeat to myself when I'm the last one in the building, and the mop bucket wheels are complaining down the hallway, and the lights are clicking off one by one. One person can change everything, not because they're special, but because they make it easier for the next person to change something too. Courage compounds. So does silence. Choose what you're investing in. My name is Logan Price. I was invisible until the night I wasn't. I stepped because I want my son to know what to do when he sees someone getting hurt. If I could go back, knowing what I know now, the threats, the fear, the long days, the courtroom, the cameras, the foundation keys in my palm, I would step forward again. Every time. If this story got under your skin, if it made you angry or hopeful or both, talk to me. Tell me where you're watching from. Tell me what part hit you hardest. Tell me what you would have done in that ballroom. If you've lived through something like this, if you've stayed quiet because it kept you safe, if you spoke up and it cost you something, if you regret it or don't, I want to hear it. Share this with someone who might need it, someone sitting in a perfect house that feels like a locked room. Don't just watch and walk away. Be the witness, be the light, be the spark that makes space for someone else to breathe. Like, share, subscribe if you believe stories like this can change what people accept in rooms where silence usually wins. I'll see you in the next one, and until then, don't underestimate what your voice can do when the music is too loud and the truth needs someone to say it out loud.